Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar on employee onboarding, which is a new AussiePay module. The purpose of this training session is to give you an understanding of how the onboarding works, how you can set it up, what it looks like from an employee's perspective, as well, and what you need to do next to get started. If you've got any questions along the way, you can either hold them till the end or you can type them into the questions window in the GoToWebinar software along the way, and then at the end of the webinar I will look at what's in there and answer anything that I can. The webinar is being recorded. You would have heard a message at the start there letting you know that it's being recorded, so if you can't stay for the whole session, by all means feel free to leave, and we will circulate a recording of the webinar in the next few days. So let's get into it. In today's session we're going to have a brief look at what the onboarding module's main objectives are. I'll talk to you about how you can set up the Onboarding Wizard, show you how to onboard your first employee and what the employee's experience then looks like, and then we'll go through how to finalize an employee. So how do you convert that employee's onboarding record into an employee record in the payroll system? So a little bit about the onboarding and its main objectives. So the first objective is to reduce manual work. So because employees enter their information directly into the payroll system, manual data entry gets eliminated. There's real-time validation. So unlike a paper form, when employees enter their tax file number, super fund and bank details directly into the system, we can validate them at that point in time, avoiding some back and forth, trying to get the right details if they're not right when you go to enter them manually into the system. There's electronic acceptance, so employee contracts and the Fair Work Statement are electronically accepted by the employee. So you've got a record there of what IP address and the date and time that those items were accepted. And it helps you engage your staff, so your new employee begins their journey with your organisation before their first day. And 83% of the highest performing organisations do begin onboarding prior to the new employee's first day on the job. That helps them hit the ground running, get up to speed and start adding value to your business much faster. So let's have a look at the wizard. The wizard is, I guess, the heart of the onboarding module. So that's what an employee goes through when they enter their details into the system. Every organisation is different. So the onboarding wizard is designed in a way that it can be, or the wording I should say, can be configured for your organisation. It only needs to be configured once, so this is part of the initial setup, and once on board you've got access to the onboarding module within your account. Even if you don't have a new starter right now, I would suggest setting up the wizard so that when you do get a new starter, the onboarding module is set up and ready to go. So let's have a look at that now. Once it's enabled, you go to onboarding, setup, onboarding wizard. That'll load up the configuration for each of the wizard screens. You'll see that for most of the screens there's a header and welcome text that you can customize. Within each one of those there can also be merge tags, which are those ones that are surrounded by percentages. You can preview a screen, so whenever you make a change you can get a rough idea of what it looks like without those merge codes merged, of course. You can choose for some of the optional screens whether you want them included in your wizard or not, so that's that yes or no flag there. For the video URL, that'll accept any video from YouTube, Vimeo or Dailymotion, so you can choose where you host those. There's the Fair Work Statement, so you'll need to upload that once. We did want to give people the freedom to upload whatever Fair Work Statement they wanted there. You can put your employee handbook into the wizard as well, and then a thank you screen at the end there. So I didn't go into too much detail about each particular screen because they can kind of be repurposed given the fact that you can control the header and the content of those of some of those ones. But you get the idea there of the screens. They are quite customizable in terms of the wording that you want. With those merge codes that I mentioned, there's probably 4 or 5 merge codes. So you've got employee name, employer name, reporting manager name as well. Those are the main ones that you'll use. And wherever they appear in the header or the text, during the wizard, they'll get substituted in with the appropriate value. So for example, if the employee's manager name was Steve, any merge code that was percentage reporting manager percentage would get replaced with the text Steve in the wizard when the employee does it. So how do you onboard your first employee? You'll only need their name, email address, manager name, and contract, but you can optionally add some extra stuff like tasks, team members, a manager message, and a buddy message. So the way you do that is you'll go to set up onboarding employees. That will load up a screen where you can see the employees, and you'll click add new employee. So you'll need to put in the family name, the given name, and the personal email address. So at this point in time, you've got to remember the employee won't have a work email address, so you'll normally be using a Gmail or something like that. And then you'll choose the onboarding manager. You can attach a contract, so normally that's going to be a Word document or a PDF. And at this point, you can initiate the onboarding if you want to, or you can choose to add optional information. So the tasks, you can remove what's there by default. You can add your own tasks, and there you can add in details, schedule it, add any attachments, etc. In the Meet Your Team section, you can choose the employees within your business that your new starter will be working with. You can filter that by position if you've got a lot of employees in your organisation. You can choose to include a message from the employee's buddy and also from their manager. Once you've filled in those optional tasks, if you wanted to do that, you click Initiate Onboarding, and that's as simple as it is to set up your first employee in onboarding. So if we look now at, whoops, one moment. Okay, if we look now at what that looks like from an employee's perspective. So when you initiate or add that new employee to the onboarding, that does a few things. It sets the employee up in our onboarding module, and it sends them a unique link to the onboarding that they can then use to start putting their information in. The main parts of the onboarding wizard, which will change depending on how you've configured it, are the contract acceptance, entering personal information, choosing a password, entering tax details, super details, etc. With the idea of welcoming your new starter, allowing some electronic acceptance, allowing information to be completed online, ensuring that only valid and complete information is provided, that your compliance obligations are met, and the last one on this list, but possibly one of the more important ones, is communicating your organization's culture and values. So let's have a look at what that looks like. So this is the email that an employee would get, tells them what they need. They click Start Onboarding, and that will take them to the wizard. So there's a screen where they can download the contract, which they would have already seen most often. So they accept that contract and then go next. Then they'll choose a password. So if they need to resume the wizard at any point in the future, they just can do that using their email address and their password. That's also the same password that they'll use to get into the system once they've converted their record to an employee record. We saw the video there from the CEO or MD. That can be any video that's good for your organization. When we chose who was in the employee's team, that populated this list. The manager can have their message there, so that can be customized per onboard. The employee puts in their details, the state, country, gender, etc. They all get validated. Emergency contact details can go in there as well. And all of these details, as we'll see in a moment, populate straight into the employee record. So you're ensuring valid and correct information. The TFN details go in here. Now, once they get entered, they'll flow through. There's validation on the tax file number, and we also do the lodgement to the ATO. Super funds again go in there, so we maintain a list of complying super funds. So the employee just types in their fund name, that populates it with the main details. They plug in their member number and then they can click next. With a self-managed super fund, it's a similar process, but the details they enter are a little bit different because there's no definitive list of self-managed super funds. The employee's BSB number gets validated when they plug in their bank account details. They can add 2 bank account details in the wizard if they need to. Now we get into the compliance aspect of making sure all employees get a fair work statement, and you of course being able to verify that they've been given that. Then the employee handbook if you've uploaded it. Now this can be downloaded by the employee. It can also be printed if they want to, whatever suits them. Then there's a confirmation screen and the employee's finished the wizard. So that one was pre-populated a little bit, and I did talk through it very quickly. But you can see the process from an employee perspective is quite straightforward. The wizard structure that we've used guides them through things without them having to think too much. As long as they've got with them their tax details, their bank details, and their super details, everything else they should just kind of know off the top of their head. But what it does, and I'll reiterate this again, is it ensures that you've got complete and valid information for each of your employees. So there's no last minute on payday trying to chase information to make sure that employees get paid correctly and on time. There's minimal risk, I should say, of employees pay going to the wrong bank account because they've given wrong details or anything like that. Continuing on the employee experience, once an employee finishes that wizard, they go to a dashboard. So the dashboard lets them revisit any of the onboarding wizard screens. They can download a copy of their contract, the employee handbook, or the fair work statement. They can upload a photo of themselves so that in a future onboarding, perhaps, when they're in there as one of the buddies of a new starter, their photo will show up there. It'll also show up in the organisation chart screen when you're editing the organisation chart for your business. Their photo will show up there. It lets them view the company notice board if you're using that, so that way they can see what's going on within the business and again start to feel like they're a part of the team already. And if you set up any tasks, they'll be able to action those tasks. So have a quick look at that. So this is what the screen looks like. They can change their picture. They can view the videos, download their contract if they want to. They can see the tasks there. They can scroll across. Now, back to those tasks for a minute. You can see the tick box, the edit box, and that there in the actions panel for the tasks. So once they complete a task, the employee will just tick that. If they needed to attach a document, they can use that edit pencil icon to attach a document to a particular task. So there's an example there of completing a task. So it's a pretty straightforward kind of process for the employee, but it gives them a lot of rich information that currently, I guess, in most organisations, employees are kind of blind to that information and don't get to see it. So finalising an employee, at this point, we're converting that onboarding employee record into an employee record in the payroll system. Not all information can get captured through the onboarding wizard, so you wouldn't want an employee entering their salary or their start date or their employment type, etc. They're not going to know what cost centres they're allocated to or any pay code default values that might need to be added into the system. So this is something that does still need to be done by the payroll person within your business, but you'll notice when we look at the video in a second that it's a much easier and quicker process than what you might currently be doing. So this is the onboarding manager dashboard, so they can see the tasks for all of their staff. They can filter that as required. They can complete a task or edit a task or even delete a task for someone who reports to them. They can also see the company dashboard, but there's an onboarding status widget here. That's important. It lets you see out of the people who are currently going through onboarding where they're up to. Once an employee has done 100% of their onboarding wizard, you'll have that link there where you can finalize it. So that finalized link will take you to the new employee screen. All of the information is going to be pre-populated that the employee provided. You just need to plug in the web roles, choose a payment group, and put in either an hourly rate or a salary, possibly update the standard hours depending on the kind of employee. Assign pay codes. Here, if there was any allowances that were the same every payroll, you'd plug those into the system. The super fund will be there. Their tax file details will be there. Bank account details, they'll be there as well. So you're not having to enter that stuff. You'll just go down to the cost center, choose the right cost center, add in default hours. So it's as simple as that. There was really, I mean, you still do need to obviously check everything, have a quick look over it, but you're really only talking about maybe 5 or 6 things that need to be indicated on that page, rather than having to manually key in names, addresses, date of birth, bank account details, and you avoid the risk that goes with manually entering that information into the system. Now, don't forget as we go, if you've got questions, plug them in so that when we get to the questions at the end, there's some stuff in there. I did schedule the webinar for 45 minutes, so that was about a half an hour demonstration plus 15 minutes for questions, so there will be plenty of time for questions at the end, and we are moving through this quite quickly, which is good. So what next? You've seen how to set up the onboarding wizard. You've seen how to onboard an employee. You've seen what the view looks like from an employee perspective, and then how you convert that employee record into a payroll record ready for payment. So you've seen the benefits that it can bring to your business. What's next is that we're going to automatically enable onboarding on your account in the coming days. Once we've done that, so that we're aiming to do that tomorrow, by the way, once we've done that, we're going to send an email out to let you know. As soon as we've done that, you'll be able to configure the wizard to meet your organization's needs. You don't need to get it right 100% right the first time. You can tweak that as you go. You're not locked into a certain configuration or a certain wording. By all means, get something there for the first one, get some feedback, see what they thought, the employee thought of the onboarding process, change the wording as you need to. Onboard your first employee, and if up until December 31st, you can do that at no cost. So if you've got someone starting over December, set up the wizard, flick them, or set them up in onboarding, I should say, so that they get that link, see what it's like. There's no cost, there's no risk to you either. Up until December 31st. Once it hits January 1, onboarding will become a paid feature. So per onboard, the cost will be $25 plus GST. And if you think about the time saving that that's going to give to your business, that's quite a good price. We have done a lot in terms of analysing what we're providing with the onboarding and how we can provide that in a way that's really cost effective to our clients. So we're really pleased at how we've managed to keep it at that figure. For most clients, that's going to save a lot of time, reduce a lot of risk, and help get employees up to speed quickly. So that kind of covers the demo. Now, it was a quick demo because once it's set up, it's very, very easy to use. So if you've got a question, and I can see that there are a few. Now, by the way, if you do type in a question and the information that you're given kind of references something to do with your organisation, I'm going to filter that out. So feel free to ask whatever question you like. You don't have to risk giving away any information about your business. If there's any questions that I can't answer for whatever reason, we've run out of time or I just don't know the answer, that's okay. I will take that away and someone will get in touch with you over the next couple of days with an answer. The first question that we've got here is, Okay, so someone, maybe this question was asked before I gave the timeline. So they asked when it's going to be turned on the account. So that's going to be turned on hopefully by close of business tomorrow. We need to see how we go. But we're aiming for close of business tomorrow, maybe Thursday, but definitely this week. Once it is enabled on your account, we'll flick an email around to all customers to let them know. So all of you, the fact that you're here means that you're on our mailing list. If you're not on our mailing list, then by all means talk to your payroll consultant and we can get you added to that mailing list. That's a lot of important information that comes out. So it's not just stuff like this onboarding announcement that comes to that list. We recently made an enhancement to our EIF, which was notified via the mailing list. When there's a release, we'll often let our clients know via that mailing list as well. The next question that I've got here is about the tax file number declaration form. So it says the TFN looks different to the ATO form. Will instructions be provided? That's a good question. So it does look slightly different in terms of the format, but the information and the flags is I guess an approved form from the tax office. So most clients should know what that, most employers should be familiar with what that means. What we might be able to do, and I'd kind of, Joy, have to class that one as feedback. It is good feedback. We've got some information in our online help about that tax form. We might be able to add some more detailed information in there to, I guess, help employees link that to the actual TFN declaration form and what that means. So that's good feedback, Joy. Thank you. There's no specific instructions at the moment, but we can definitely look at getting some. There's also a question there. Okay, so the next question is about custom fields. So this question's from Stephen. Stephen, on his account, and this is one of those ones where I'm trying to filter to make sure I don't give anything out that's, I guess, private or related to that company. So Stephen's company has custom fields set up. So rather than the standard fields, they've got a couple of extra ones. Stephen wants to know whether those can be entered by the employee through the onboarding process. Not currently. So we've done a lot of work. I'll give you a bit of background on the onboarding. We've done a lot of work over the past 12 months or so on the onboarding. We rolled it out to a handful of our clients for early access and got some feedback along the way around what worked well and what didn't. And that kind of feedback and some changes we implemented as a result of that is where we're at today with the onboarding module that you've just seen. The onboarding module that you've just seen has gone through some iterations over the past months. There's more that we would like to do. Custom fields is one of those things that we would like to put in there, but at the moment it's not there. But there's definitely some more enhancements coming to onboarding over the next 12 months that we'd like to that I look forward to sharing with you. Sorry. Next question is, you showed 5 to 6 steps in the onboarding process. Can the company customize the steps? So some of the steps can be turned on or off. So the welcome screen will always be there. The wording on that screen can be customized. And that's also the contract acceptance screen. The password screen will always be there. That can't be removed because every employee does need to choose a password. And I'm working through this off the top of my head, so apologies if I do miss any of the steps. The personal, or actually no, before personal details, there's the Meet My Team screen. So the Meet My Team screen can be turned on or off. If you don't want that in there, you don't have to have that in your onboarding. The manager message and the buddy message. So in the example that I went through, there was only a manager message. But that same screen can also have a buddy message. So that's again an optional screen. Personal details, TFN details, emergency contact, and super fund and bank account details. Those ones are all compulsory information. They're needed to be able to create an employee in the system, so you can't skip those steps. The fair work statement, every employee in the country has to get a fair work statement, as far as I'm aware, when they start employment. So again, that one can't be removed, but the employee handbook screen can be removed. The final step on the wizard, which is that final confirmation screen, that can't be removed, but you can change the wording on it. Okay, the next question is, who will have access to the onboarding process? Is there a new role, or is it added to an existing role? It is a new role, and that's part of the, well, actually it's 2 new roles, and I'll explain that in a second. And that's part of the enabling that we've got to do to get it onto your account, is allocating those web roles to your business and then allocating it to someone within your business. So the 2 new web roles that are there are onboarding user and onboarding onboarding user and onboarding manager. An onboarding manager will be able to assign or set an employee up, I should say, on onboarding. They'll have access to their onboarding dashboard. They'll be able to see the progress of an employee's onboarding as well, and also see tasks for the employees that are being onboarded. That onboarding manager will also be able to be assigned as a reporting manager for an employee that's being onboarded. The onboarding user web role is reserved for an employee that's going through the onboarding wizard. So when you set, that's not a web role that you'll ever manually assign to a person or someone within your business. So the system, when you create an employee in the onboarding module, that'll automatically assign that person the onboarding user web role, and that's what gives them access to the onboarding employee dashboard and gives them access to the onboarding wizard. Once you convert that person into a employee record in the payroll system, they'll lose that onboarding user web role automatically. So there's nothing really that you need to do with regard to that web role, but you will see it in your system. Another question. So once the configuration is done, can I use a dummy email to test it? Of course you can. So given that onboarding is free for the month of December, if you did want to set up a dummy employee, you can certainly do that. The only advice I would give is not converting that employee record into a record in the payroll. So you can click finalize to see what it looks like on the new employee form if you like, but I wouldn't save that new employee record, because you don't want to risk something getting sent to the ATO, or accidentally make a payment to a wrong bank account or something like that. Okay, next question is, once the onboarding process is finalised on our end and we enter the work email address for the employee, does their login details refer to their work email address with the original password they created? Absolutely right. So the only thing that will be different once you add their work email address is that they'll put in their work email address rather than their personal email address, and their login details will, or their password I should say, will be what they chose. The next question is, if an employee hasn't completed all their tasks, can we take over the process in order to finalise it? So I think I'm not 100% sure, I guess, of there's 2 ways that question could go. One question is, one way to look at it is in terms of the wizard. So that wizard got however many screens it's got. Let's say someone got up to the personal details screen and they hadn't entered their tax details yet, you couldn't jump in and finish that on their behalf because you don't know their tax details. But if you're talking about it from the other perspective where you've set up some tasks that an employee needs to complete as part of their onboarding, and those employees haven't, that employee hasn't finished all of those tasks, because you'll be able to see those tasks on your onboarding manager dashboard, then you'll be able to finish those tasks off for the employee on their behalf. It will keep a record of the fact that you've done it rather than them. So that's okay from an audit perspective as well. Okay, what other questions have we got? Okay, so we've got a question there. So I mentioned before when I answered one of the other questions that we're going to automatically assign the onboarding manager and the onboarding user web role to your account. We're also going to automatically assign that to users on your account. And the question that I've got here is which users are going to automatically be made onboarding managers? The answer to that question is anybody who currently has the ability to add a new employee into the system will be given by default the ability to set an employee up in onboarding. And if there's anybody extra that you would like to have access as an onboarding manager, we can certainly help you to set that up. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions right now. I'm going to hang around for a little bit longer. If you've got a question, by all means, now's the time to enter it into the questions dashboard. Into the questions widget there in GoToMeeting. If you've got any questions, the payroll team is actually very busy at the moment. This is actually, other than year end, this week and next week are probably our busiest weeks of the year with clients trying to bring payrolls forward over the Christmas period. So I will ask you that if you think of any questions later, just hold on to them for now. You might find that when you rewatch this webinar, once the link goes around, that the question has actually been answered. Once we release the onboarding access to you, we're also going to send out a user guide. So there's a PDF user guide. There'll also be some stuff in the online help, in the online help center. So have a look at that stuff first. And if once that's done, you've still got a question that's not answered, then by all means flick something through to your payroll consultant. They may not know the answer straight away, but they'll be able to get in touch with me or someone else in the business and we'll get you an answer. Other than that, if you've got no questions, thank you for coming and keep an eye out for the recording as well as the onboarding module set up on your account. Okay, we have had another question come in. The question is, once the onboarding module is set up, can we choose to use it for some employees while not using it for others? You certainly can. I guess in a lot of ways, it would depend on your business why you would want to do that, but I think there's a lot of value in having all employees onboarded the same way, and that's because then you know when you look back that a particular employee did get the handbook, they did get the Fair Work statement, their contracts online, etc., whatever it might be. But if there is a genuine business reason why you would want to do some manually and some using our onboarding wizard, you can definitely do that. If you do think that's what works best for your business, I'd love to get some feedback on why that's so, because to me that could indicate a gap in our onboarding, and I'd love to know what that might be.